Hello, viewers of OBN Horn of Africa. And this is Future Africa program. And today I'm joining by Professor Dibaba, Tesfaye from UK, London. And thank you very much, Professor Dibaba, for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
Great, and let us start our discussion, and let me start with this question. And let us start from the very concept of this national dialogue, and what does it mean, and under what circumstances countries hold national dialogue?
Yeah, that's good. Just to give a brief background, what it means to have national dialogue, we need to have always when we discuss something, we need to know the meaning, or we need to define the concept that we're dealing with. On this occasion, we're dealing with the national dialogue. National dialogue are nationally owned political processes aimed at generating consensus among a broad range of national stakeholders in times of deep political crisis or in post-war situation. Maybe during far-reaching political transitions, you also can have national dialogue. It must include a broad range of national stakeholders, including the main protagonists or parties to the conflicts. Why do we need a national dialogue? There must be a problem, a nationwide, societal-wide, and so to solve the deep-rooted causes of instability and conflicts, sometimes we take this step, a national dialogue. It has to be genuine, it has to be sincere, honest, aimed at bringing a sustainable solution and a durable peace for the nation. If a national dialogue is aimed at elite deal-making, it is not going to succeed. And there are many cases we can cite. And also we need to understand national dialogue is a process-oriented, is a consensual decision-making arenas that put dialogue and trust building at the center of the process. Two elements, it has to be consensual, and it has to be a trust building at the center of. Now, the gist of the issue, this matter, I actually prioritize trust building must be the main objective of any national dialogue. Without trust, people will never be able to communicate or converse or discuss the issues they have. So that's the most important aspect. But in order to build a trust, what do you need to do? I think what the commissioners need to understand, they need to understand the building blocks of trust building. If they don't have that understanding, if they're not enlightened enough, they might be able to waste the opportunities. There are many building blocks of trust building, but one and the most important building blocks of national trust building is authentic communication. This is a very serious matter. People might think this is a two-word. It requires a deeper societal understanding. Our culture, the political issues, the historical issues, there's so many gamuts of a multifacets of the societal problem. If inauthentic communication is exercised, we're not gonna get to the bottom of the problem. Where there is no trust, people will not communicate clearly, honestly, and sincerely. And this authentic communication also requires a positive intention. People always say, what is this all about? What is the intention? What is the motive? What is behind it? If the society suspects this national dialogue is about elite power deal making, they will not disclose the issues. They say this is a normal, this is a usual, they just came, seems to be done. Seems to be done, but there's something behind it. So positive intention, intent, authentic communication, and there must be a forgiveness even if there's sometimes a mistake happens within or among or between different communities. And for this to succeed, people must have a contact from far, from one angle, from a far pole. What they hear, the information they have is maybe wrong, but when people meet, we call this a contact zone. When people meet, they say, wow, they are the same as us. What I heard was that, but this is completely different. So it eliminates the suspicion, the fears, all the premonitions that people have about each other. So contact zone is very important. Is also the leaders need to understand what are the scheme of cooperation, a sustainable and enduring peace and solution. So scheme of cooperation is very important, and the trust building is very important, and transparency. People have to do what they say. When people don't do what they say, people become suspicious, especially the African elites, including Ethiopia. The elites are dishonest most of the time. That's why they can't have the confidence of their own people. People don't listen to them. So they take their own measure to protect themselves, to cause problems. But most of the time, these elites have been part of the problems instead of part of the solution. So what does the main purpose of the national dialogue also must seek or sought to expand participation in political transition beyond the political and military elites. Beyond the political and the military elites and the economic elites. If it is the deal making between these three alone, you will never have forever a peace and enduring stability of a country. So that is very important. And as I said, let me repeat again, if the national dialogue is only aimed at elite deal making, I will keep repeating this, elite deal making never succeeded in any of a nation or a state that tried a national dialogue. So this is very important. It must be participatory, wider range of participation among the society, different segments of societies, including those who have the bargaining power or the dispossessed. For example, the trade unions and the professionals have a bargaining power.
if you raise the issue of inclusiveness, and some group argue that the armed groups should not be allowed to take part in this national dialogue, and while the other insists that it should be inclusive. And what is your view on this, if you can strengthen them, because you have already raised it?
Okay. Before I embark on the inclusivity, let me clarify the two objectives. They are categorized in narrow objectives and wider objectives. The national dialogue is a mechanism either of a crisis prevention and management, or as a mechanism of fundamental change. So it depends on your objectives. And the short-term endeavor as a means to resolve or prevent the outbreak of armed violence is the short term. It is a mechanism of crisis management and prevention. This is the first objectives. The key aim of this mechanism of crisis prevention and management is to breaking political deadlocks, re-establish minimum political consensus. For example, in Tunisia, this is what they've used. By the way, the Tunisian experience is almost like a miraculous to say. Why? Within 5 months, they've managed to resolve the political deadlock. For example, they started, I have the timeline. They've started presentations of roadmap for national dialogue in September 17, 2013. By the same year, October the 5th, 2013, they presented roadmap signed by 23 political parties of the 27. They started September, the roadmap for national dialogue. That was the presentation. I'm reading the timeline. By October, within a month, they had a roadmap signed by 23 political parties among the 27. By January 26, 2014, they adopted a new constitution. This is miraculous. On the contrary, the Yemenis started in 2013. Until today, nearly 10 years, they haven't solved anything. Actually, they went from bad to worse. And so, as I said, the key aim of the first mechanism of objectives of the national dialogue, if it is for crisis prevention and management, and the example I gave, breaking political deadlocks, reestablishing a minimum political consensus, But the second one, if it is a mechanism of fundamental change, so these efforts with a long-term trajectory, or the envision as a means to redefine a state society's relations or establish a new social contract. In Ethiopia, I think what we need is the second. On both, we need the first mechanism to break the political deadlock. It's not a choice, because while you are firing, you cannot design a roadmap. This violence must pause to give a space where you can at least have a room to maneuver, to think, to even have amicable contacts, but it has to be genuine. I keep repeating, this ingenuity is the problem we have all over the underdeveloped countries. Always the elites, the power brokers, the deal makers are always disingenuous, and the people don't trust them. That's why you find continuous strife, rebellious conflicts, displacement, war, full-blown war. So the second mechanism is, if it is aimed at the fundamental change, the relationship between the states and the society, to reach a complete social contract, a new social contract. And the problem we have is all over these underdeveloped countries, they've never been able to establish a social contract. Until they reach that, the decision, including the elites and the society-wide, we need a new social contract. We need to change fundamentally the state-society's relations. That is when you will have a system. Where there is a system, people can negotiate within that system. If injustice occurs, you go to the system and seek a redress. But when there is no such a system, there is no way to redress grievance. So grievance, how do you just revert back to violence. So to prevent that, the enduring peace and stability can only be endured or established on principles of justice and a genuine social contract between the state and the society. So this is the far-reaching implication of that is an institutional and constitutional change. Constitutional change. Or maybe, even if there is an existing constitution, you can improvise. For example, the United States started with 7 articles of their constitution. So far, they have amended 27 times. What do we have? We always start from the scratch. Haile Selassie done twice. Mengistu just done once. The EPRDF stroke TPLF did once. So what Ethiopia need now is a complete new social contract to establish an enduring system. A system that reflects the country's culture, traditions, customs. And when you establish a system, a new social contract, that's where people will have a confidence. They can negotiate in life based on that. So to come to your question,
by the way,
the exclusion, yeah.
Do you think, before coming to that inclusiveness, do you think that the current constitution is a problem?
To my knowledge, so far I have investigated about 58 countries' constitution. No constitution is immune from, or you see, as I say to my student, perfection has no full stop. We always evolve. We always adapt to our situation. For example, before information technology, how can you design a law? And for us, there is plenty of room for improvement. But this attitude, mentality of destroy everything that we have and start from zero, that is a complete societal bankruptcy. A system cannot be built, you destroy everything and then you rebuild. It's not like a house. You can do a house or you can repair, you can build a new design. But a system can be improvised. For example, what is it? Rights. We know what about rights is, but these rights, it always evolves. The more the society evolves, it is evolutionary, it's in tandem. By the way, the British, they don't have a one document uniform written constitution. The reason being, because they can adapt. They've got something called a common law. Every time something new happens, they adapt. By the way, when they legislate a new law, they don't completely destroy existing one. On top of the existing one, they add a bit of section and subsections to improve, to extend, to cover a new situation, new circumstance. So I won't say there are a lot of good things in the existing constitution. I got it as I'm really scrutinized the Ethiopian constitution in 1997. I've written what needs to be done and all that. Since then, I keep reading and I keep, oh, this could be, you can add this. This is unnecessary. This is, by the way, as far as my knowledge goes, those who really extend like hundreds of articles, it doesn't mean anything. Look, United States, a big country, a powerful country, 7 articles and 27 amendments. They effectively, now, by the way, there is a new revolution in the United States, just for the public knowledge. It's called a constitution scrutiny or auditing. The people just go and test, they take a picture or a video in public space, and when the police come and start barking, they say, this is my first amendment. So they're testing how the public officials behaves in their office, outside their office, including the police. And why? They just mention one article, my first amendment. That gives me right. You cannot do anything to me as long as I'm within the law. I'm not violating. They say, oh, you are trespassing. There is no law that says a trespass in public space. So it's much easier. You can write a 2 article for a nation, that's enough, to my knowledge. If you extend, the really muddle things, that does not mean anything. So what I'm saying is a constitution must be brief and easy, user-friendly. Anyone can understand and pick it and say, and that is if you have a system.
I'm sure we will have another session to discuss about this constitution because it's very important. And if you can go back to the inclusiveness issue of this national dialogue, some group insisted that it should be inclusive, and others argue that the armed groups should not be allowed to take part in the national dialogue. And what is your view on this?
Yeah, to answer your question, I need to address the inclusivity issue. Depends on, as I said, the objective or the mechanism that you choose. If it is a crisis prevention and management, because this is, as I said before, is a short-term endeavor undertaken strategically as a means to resolve or prevent the outbreak of armed conflicts. In the first place, you need to stop it. Yeah? If you want to have durable and sustainable peace and solution, inclusivity is not an option. In the first place, the purpose of national dialogue is to solve a problem. So you cannot treat the healthy part of your body instead of the sick part of your body. The purpose of treatment, if I use a medical analogy, is to address what the problem is. If you have a problem with your foot, you have to treat it. If you have a problem with your head, you have to treat it. If you have a problem with your heart, you have to treat it. Negotiating, consensus formation, establishment of understanding, mutual understanding, consensus, trust building. This is what is very important. So this idea of who are you to tell me is underpinning that confrontation is we are all equal. Who the hell are you to tell me how we coexist? That's at the center of the disputes or the confrontation. So for me, it's very important to practice inclusivity, transparency, intrigue and trickery stuff, or the elite deal making, some elites, not all. That's not going to help a durable and sustainable solution. So that's why the Tunisians have decided wisely, society-wide, all inclusively, they sat down and agreed on terms and conditions. By the way, there is a process. As I said, the national dialogues are a process-oriented. The preparation stage, there's a process stage, there is an implementation stage. All of this requires a very serious attention, a very genuine dedication and commitment by all segments of the societies who have the issues to address or seeking redress. So exclusive projects will never work anywhere where you have a problem. It has to include everyone, regardless of their shapes and colors and shades. And that's what I can say at the moment.
Thank you. And as you know, activities have already started to hold this national dialogue, and the government has already established the commission. And how do you see the efforts that has already made? And what do you suggest should be encouraged and should be corrected?
Yeah, I don't know the details, how they've done it. If it was done wisely, you see, there is a saying, there is an English saying, if you're not prepared to succeed, you prepare to fail. If the preparation was to succeed, there are certain things, as I've said, have a clear objectives and use these two mechanisms. For Ethiopia, there's no choice. The mechanism of preventing and management a crisis prevention and management, or the mechanism of fundamental change is not an option, it is a requisite for the success of this national dialogue. But those who have been given this task are wise enough, are really genuinely selected on, shall I say, where everyone can agree. You know, even, you know, people have differences. People contest on so many issues, but there are people who have integrity and among the society say, look, this person is fair, a just-minded, and a wise person. We can trust this person, this group of people. But so, even from the beginning, as I said, if you don't prepare to succeed, you prepare to fail. If a people don't trust the commissioners and they put them in a box, you're gonna have a problem from the start.
And what do you mean,
So,
Professor, what do you mean when you say fundamental change? Do you mean regime change or what?
no, I did explain, the two mechanisms. The first mechanism is a crisis prevention and management. That is to break a political deadlocks and prevent outbreak of violence. The fundamental change is to redesign a society-state relations and a new social contract. A new social contract must be based on agreed code of conduct. This code of conduct is, in another name, constitution. To constitute what everyone can agree, it can be accepted. This will mediate whenever we have a problem, whenever we clash, whenever there is a grievance. This can redress. It's a document, is a sacred document, a social contract that binds people. It is also very important for harmonious coexistence, especially in a plural national society such as Ethiopia and many other African countries. So that's what I mean, fundamental change. Fundamental change is not a fakish, like cosmetic seems to be. No, fundamental means fundamental. The social arrangement, the society-state relation was new social contract, agreed terms and conditions, a code of conduct.
You mean in a sense of national consensus, to bring national consensus?
Without consensus, you cannot build this new social contract, you see? That's why we need to converse, everyone to bring to the table what is their grievance, and then you sift it, and then you refine those ideas and postulate it into amicable, acceptable, agreed terms and conditions. Consensus leads to that. And so you design that system, social contract, as I said, a constitution. It takes some element from existing one and bring in new things that people have a serious concern about it. And so, by the way, democracy, at the central belly of democracy is consent. The consent of the people is very important in good governance. The consent of the people have never been practiced in Africa. That's why you have a nightmare. Those agents of nightmares, they don't believe in consent. They believe in brutalizing, brutal dictatorships and totalitarians. This is why they're causing havoc and nightmare to the society.
Thank you very much. And do you think this national dialogue will be successful that Ethiopia is trying to hold?
If you prepare to succeed, of course. If you don't prepare to succeed, the other side of the coin is you prepare to fail. The preparation is very important. Go again. You know, in running, athletics, especially short distance, like 100 meter, 100 or 200 of a second of starting will affect whether you become a champion or not. So the starting is very important. You must have a sharp ear to hear when the gun is going off, boom. So national dialogue requires the same as 100-meter fast runners, a sharp ear to listen. The commissioners must have a sharp ear to listen and respond. So the preparation stage, as I said, they have a lot of elements in it. First, they need to clarify the objectives and the agendas. And then the structure of the process has to be designed properly. And there have to be a criteria for compositions and selections, procedures for participants. And there has to be also a selection of a chair, which they've done it. And the decision-making procedures has to be agreed and very clear, unambiguous. And there have to be a support structure from a wider angle, from the wise men, old and the intellectuals, if there are, I don't know how many of them in the country, but the logistics and funding and securities are very important, because the reason I'm saying this is the so-called educated, well, I call them literates, are perpetuating problems. What they advocating, what they saying is a complete a disgrace. Is a disgrace. Knowing means being loyal to the truth, being refined, be able to see the good in human affair, the virtuous, the noble. So I don't see those elements, those qualities in the so-called educated. For me, if a person is not loyal to the truth of the nation, of the country's reality, there are self-evident truths. One self-evident truth about Ethiopia is a diverse society. Nobody can contest this. But the problem is, most of the arguments I hear, they don't reflect that. Most of the gathering, the groupings, is one group, they deceive, they say, we are Ethiopians, we are advocating Ethiopian winners. But it's a vacuous for a learned person. When you look into their soul, it's a vacuous. So these are very important. As I said, a starting point is very important. So in the process, what do they need to do? In the second stage from preparation, the process phase is about resolving outstanding and controversial issues. Unless you do that, you cannot move on to implementation. Most of the African problems I have, because I study Africa all my life, still doing, the half-baked is not going to give you an enduring and sustainable peace and solution. Why? Because the outstanding issues are not dealt with. They always glossed over by something else. National security, national integrity, national unity. National integrity means the integrity of the people. Let me give on this occasion what it means, what defines a state. In a state, you have a people, you have institutions, you have a defined territory. It might shrink or expand, depend on whether the nation is led by a wise man or a fool. There is a saying, give a dog 2-inch, a monkey 6-inch for a fool, 1,000,000 miles is not enough. But most of the time at the center of the society in Africa, who are shaping the society's affairs are fools. That's why they destroy their country. All the time fragmentation, separatism, secessionism, liberation front, this and that. Because they don't know how to handle the situation. They're not wise, they're fools. And so outstanding issues must be resolved at the second phase. The first phase is preparation phase. That is where you decide all the procedures, all the objectives and agendas, and the structure of how to go about the business of conducting this national dialogue. I prefer if those commissioners are multilingual. Instead of second-hand information, if they hear at least the major language of the country or the nations, they can understand, they can have direct access to the meaning of what the people say. But sometimes when you translate, the meaning is lost. So multilingual, a decent, a noble character, and properly educated and loyal to the truth. Otherwise, if they knowingly are, this is negligence, it's not going to be able to bring or bear fruits.
And let me quickly forward these two questions. And the first one is, what is expected from the government and from the opposition political party, and even from the global community as well?
National dialogues are nationally owned political process aimed at generating consensus among a broad range of national stakeholders in times of deep political crisis or in post-war situation during far-reaching political transition. So global community set aside. What does that? There is no such a thing. In our term, we don't have a, what is global community? You don't even have a problem, cohesive community, one nation, even one language, such as in Somalia. You talk about global community. What community is a cohesive entity. There is, how can you define what is global? Global governance, global community. This is a vacuum in our term. Okay, and the political opposition parties or political, whatever political parties or the government has to really show a genuine and honest and a sincere interest in this endeavor. If there is a trickery behind it, if there is a deceptive intention, as I said, if you don't prepare to succeed, you prepare to fail. For that self-edification, get over all the emotional and the immaturity propensity. Be able to control and purge one's emotion, even if it is bitter, like a decisive medicine, to swallow, even if it is bitter, to bring fundamental change. Ethiopia needs fundamental change, but the first mechanism needs to be applied to crisis prevention and management. First, political deadlock, you break that. Outstanding issues, you address that, and then move on to fundamental change. Two things: society-state relations and a new social contract. So if the governments uphold that, aims and eagerly invest in that, that's what you get. I can give a very simple example, not to complicate issues, because an educator is someone who simplifies complex things into a simplify. Yeah. One, you can't plant an orange tree and expect a mango or avocado. If the government plants the seed of something, a noble idea, accepted idea, nobody refused a noble idea. Nobody refused in Ethiopia or anywhere on this planet that will bring peace and stability, that will bring prosperity. The political elites, they're not supposed to calculate a deal-making process. This is not a deal-making process. This is a reconstruction of societal issues to build an amicable, acceptable new social contract and to redefine the society-state relationship.
Finally, if you have anything to say, you are welcome.
Yeah, let me give this, convey this very serious message. Be honest, be sincere, commit, and be prepared to pay any price. For those half-baked elites, I'm talking, those who have practiced for decades, 40, 50 years, deception, intrigues, and tricks, change that completely wipe your slate and start a new clean slate. Think about the nation, not the deceptive version of national unity. Ethiopia andinet, Ethiopia hiluna. Change your language, change your mindset, change your paradigm to a genuine and enduring, peaceful coexistence of the nation. We need a new social contract, and we need to redefine the society-state relationship. Thank you.
Professor Dibaba Tesfaye, thank you for your time and for your analysis. Thank you for
I
now.
really appreciate. Thank you for having me.
Dear viewers of OBN Horn of Africa, this is all about our discussion for this edition. Until next edition, goodbye.